Hello viewers, welcome to our lecture series on self-management. This is going to be part 3 of our lectures on self-management under lecture series on Indian ethos in management. We have with us Ms. Manisha for symbolic expression. Continuing my discussion on 7 models, I'll be telling you now about model number 5, which talks about 3 views of life, the way you look at your life. So there are essentially 3 views of life, one which is giving us a view of an economic man, economistic view, second one is humanist materialistic view, and third one is transcendental and holistic view. So taking you to these 3 different views of life, let me first start with the economic view, where the human being is merely a utility maximizing individual. The person who looks for maximizing the profit, maximizing the utility, or being very logical, or behaving like an economic man, driven by greed and is a mere factor of production. You feel that all the resources, they are supposed to be maximized, they are supposed to be used to the maximum extent. This is what a person thinks here. But if you look at humanist materialistic view, it takes a liberal approach and it considers human beings as asset and resources. They consider human beings to be an asset, to be an asset which is worth keeping, or you can consider it as human resource. That is why we call humans as a resource, human resource management. We teach and we practice. If we look at the transcendental or holistic view of the human, you will find that it considers human being as individuals seeking a balance between 4 objects of life. We know that in Eastern awakening idea, we have 4 objects of life, starting from dharma to earth, then kama and moksha. So these 4 are called as objects of life, and as a human being you have to maintain a balance between the 4 or among the 4. So in this approach, business activity is sacroeconomic in nature, and the organization or business enterprise is called as sacroeconomic entity. So you are basically behaving as an entity which is sacroeconomic, and it is not merely an economic entity or a business entity, but you have to ensure that it is driven by a human being who has to balance between the 4 objects of life. So it may be observed that these 3 views of life also correspond to again the 3 approaches, that is transactional, transformational and transcendental approaches to the science, arts and wisdom of living. So at times you become very logical and you talk about science, you talk about cause and effect relationship. You become artistic, you talk about art because you wish to transform. And when you talk about wisdom of living, it means you are following the approach of transcendental. So my dear learners, when we talk about this view of life, it actually determines your behavior, the way you look at the life, that actually matters a lot. If you are considering life to be an economic journey, an economic activity, then of course you will only be very logical. You will always look for getting the maximum out of any resource, and you will also become an asset. You will also become a resource only. You will also become an object only. But from object to resource, if you wish to reach to that level of your journey in your life, then you will have to follow the transcendental view of life or taking holistic view of life. Now moving ahead to the leadership idea from the Eastern awakening perspective, there are 3 types of leadership here, which is explained by model number 6. So there are 3 types of leaders. A leader can be transactional, a leader can be transformational, or a leader can be transcendental. So whether you are a leader who wish to bring or showcase the transformational attitude, or you are only a transactional leader, or you are a transcendental leader, it will actually be dependent on your behavior. It will actually be dependent upon the way you look at life, the way yourself is developed. So leadership literature, if we look, we find that it has already recognized this very idea of transformational leadership, and now it is making a move in the direction of considering the concept of transcendental leadership. So from transaction to transformational, already we have talked about. Now it's time for us to talk about the concept of transcendental leadership, another level, that is a third level of our journey, where we talk about the third type of leadership. Transcendental leaders, what are the traits of a transcendental leaders? They are basically called as Yuga Purush. You can call them Yuga leaders, the leaders which are not merely leaders of a particular moment, minute, hour, day or an year. They basically work from decade to decade, or some of them can become a person of century also. So transcendental leaders, their first trait is that they behave like a yoga leaders. You will witness their presence in terms of their behavior, in terms of their success, in terms of their performance. While transformational leaders, they are institution builders. You can find some of the leaders who create institutions or who build up an institution or organization. So this is the very trait of transformational leaders, that they believe into the institution building. Whereas the transcendental leaders, they are revolutionary in nature. They create some revolution, they bring some revolution in the way we are managing the business enterprises. They basically think beyond what is going on. Whereas transformational leaders, they try to collect all the resources which are available, and they are trying to build an institution, build an organization, build an enterprise. But a revolution is something which is missing in their behavior at times. You may find some of the transformational leaders to be revolutionary also, but the transcendental leaders, their first and the foremost trait is that they are revolution makers. So these are the three types of leaderships according to which we are witnessing the behavior of the leaders in a business enterprise, or even in a country, even at national level or at global level. If you are finding a person, a leader to be revolutionary, you must understand that the person is basically a transcendental leader. Whereas if some of the leaders, they are building institutions, building business enterprises, then of course they belong to the category of transformational leaders. Whereas transactional leaders, they are simply running the routine activities of a business enterprise. So they'll keep on doing what the other leaders have been doing, and that is why they keep on getting what others have been getting. So from transactional to transformational, and then the transcendental leaders. These are three types of leaders which are reflected in model number 6. And they have these transcendental leaders, they have the capacity of transforming the organizations, nations, communities and societies by three important approaches. One is love, the second one is compassion, and third one is devotion. And some of the researchers, they call it as LCD approach. They say that it is LCD approach of transcendental leaders, which basically follows the approach of love, compassion and devotion in order to transform the organization or the place wherever they work, wherever they are, whether they are working at the level of a company or at the level of a family or nation or even the globe. So they follow LCD approach, and while practicing this, a mix of 3 T's, transactional, transformational and transcendental, it could be used with greater emphasis on transformational and transcendental approaches. So if you are combining all 3 types of leadership in your business enterprise, then you can make good use of all 3, but the greater emphasis need to be on transformational and transcendental approaches. So it is a leadership type, it is the type of leadership which will actually determine the behavior of your business enterprise, because whatever your leader does, accordingly all the members and even the organization follows a leader. So it is the leader who is going to dream. So the vision of the leader is going to be converted into the reality by the collective performance of each and every individual working in the organization. Now moving ahead to the last model, that is model number 7, which talks about 3 styles of management, and it says that there are essentially 3 styles of management: transactional, that is T1, transformational, and the third one is transcendental. So it says that these 3 styles of management, they determine the fate of any organization or any country or even any family. So these styles, they represent 3 types of relationships also, whether your relationship is of transactional in nature or transformational in nature or transcendental in nature in terms of your interpersonal interactions, the way you talk to your colleagues, the way you talk to your clients, the way you interact in society, that would be dependent on the style of management, your style of management, whether it is transformational or transcendental or it is transactional only. So this 3T matrix, if we look, it can be it takes us beyond the transaction analysis model while incorporating it in its fold. In fact, interpersonal interactions can also be analyzed through 3T matrix, and this 3T matrix is also useful for relationship management. We now have the CRM, that is corporate relationship management. We have CRM officers. So this 3T matrix is also useful for relationship management, and for instance, we can say that the relationship of your company with your stakeholders could be transactional, it could be transformational, and it could be transcendental in nature. And we all know that transformational and transcendental can bring the better results. So when organizations build strong brands, they seek to establish a transcendental relationship with their customers on the basis of strong emotional linkages. Because unless you have that level of rapport with your customers, you cannot build a strong brand. You cannot say that my brand has now reached to a level of brand equity, that I can do the valuation of my brand and show it in the annual report of my company. So it is basically the 3T matrix which can be used in a strategic way to find the desired results. So now if we compare the past with the present, in the past we have witnessed the transactional style of management dominated, and the transactional managers were considered as effective managers because they were somehow getting the results, they were giving the result. Like input is there, they were processing it, and the output was coming to us. So they largely displayed the theory X approach of motivation, that if you wish to motivate a person, theory X is an idea. Subsequently, the transformational style of management was also accepted. We started accepting the transformational style of management, where from management of by objectives to management by walking around. We started talking about management by walking around, having sympathy or empathy with your subordinates. So the transformational managers, they started using theory Y and Z, or what you call as Z theory, in their routine functioning. So the journey was like from X to Y and Z, and a combination of transactional and transformational approach can also be seen in practice in the form of, nowadays we call theory K, that is K stands for Karta and Kutum. We talk about the person who performs the duty, and the Kutum means the family, that feeling of family within the organization. So we are now traveling towards emotivity and mutuality style of management, from authoritarian to emotivity and now mutuality style of management we talk about. So while transactional approach was exemplified by Western management, if we look at the transformational approach, it was exemplified by Japanese style of management. Japanese talk about the transformational approach as far as the management is concerned, but the combination approach, that is nurturant task leadership. It was suggested by Professor JBP Sinha. It is exemplified by Indian management, where we are nurturing a business organization, where we follow the path of nurturant task leadership. So, a leader who nurtures also. So, now a new realization is to move even beyond the transformational approach. We wish to move towards the transcendental approach, which is represented by, which is based on emotions and mutuality. Here we find another approach called PREM, that is Prem, purity in the relationship coupled with emotivity and mutuality. So, an acronym of PREM is given here: purity in the relationship, which is coupled with emotivity and mutuality. Now, this is a style of management which can let us reach to the level of transcendental leadership, or establishing an organization which is transcendental in nature, where the philosophy is transcendental. Your philosophy is based on transcendental approach. So, this approach is also the essence of the Indian management, because it is based on the philosophy of non-violence, where we talk about Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, let everyone be happy and healthy. And this could be called as theory T, that is the theory of transcendence, wherein there is always a touch of sacredness, purity and transcendence in all human activities. We are finding everyone to be a miniature of Almighty. We find presence of Almighty in every human being, and that is why we are reaching to a level where we are establishing an organization wherein all employees consider their task to be very sacred, to be very important, and they contribute their best for finding the better results. So, in future this style may be accepted, we may assume that this style may be accepted in the corporate world also, though some of the companies, they might be practicing it in their individual life, but yes, it may take some time for it to percolate down to the level of corporate world also, because they are doing in one way or the other. At individual level they are practicing, but at the level of corporate, the established principles they are going on. It can only be coupled with this Eastern awakening idea. Again, I am saying that they are not competitive in nature, they are complementary to each other. If we somehow club the Western enlightenment with that of Eastern awakening, we can find the surprising results. So, now my dear learners, it's time for us to understand the implications of it. What are the implications of these 7 models which we have discussed here for individuals, for companies, for societies and for nation? What are the implications of this? This is something which we need to discuss here only. The economistic and transactional approaches, they have contributed to the material development, as we find a reflection of the same by increase in per capita income, that your per capita income is increasing, the size of GDP is increasing. It means you are successful in terms of material development, but the question is whether that development is sustainable or not. So, this per capita happiness, what about the per capita happiness? It has gone down in societies which have experienced the highest of rates in terms of their per capita income. We find that the countries where the GDP rate is very high, or the size of GDP is very huge, their per capita happiness is as low as their per capita income is high. So in the same magnitude, that is, on one hand you are having highest GDP, that is per capita income, or the biggest size of GDP, but your per capita happiness goes down. So, what we need a shift, there is a shift, it has been occurring in the direction of transformational and transcendental approaches. People are drawing good salary, but they are not happy. So, how to find the happiness in the business enterprise, in a country, in a society? We will have to shift from this transactional to transformational and transcendental approaches, because we are dealing with a human being, and a human being will only be happy once you talk about the transformational or transcendental approaches when we follow these two. So there are number of new age spiritual movements rooted in Vedic, Vedantic and Indianic approaches, and they encompass various psycho-spiritual traditions that have emerged. With the passage of time, we are finding we have now started realizing the significance of those Vedic, Vedantic and Indianic approaches. It was already there with us, but we were not realizing the power of that, and that is why now we are studying it as a subject. What is Indian ethos in management? What is Eastern awakening idea? We are enlightened, no doubt, but what about the awakening? To what extent you are awakened? So the idea of metro spirituality, those who are living in the metro cities, metropolitan cities or states, it has also come into existence because of the need for spiritualization of metros to overcome stress. Now we talk about managing stress. We all talk about management of stress or stress management. But the question comes, why are we letting stress make an entry into our life? Rather than managing stress, why don't we stop it? Why don't we uproot it? Why don't we eliminate it? Why don't we dissolve it in place of resolving? So these movements, they basically indicate a deeper urge of human beings to seek a balance between material and spiritual development. We have to strike a balance between the material and spiritual development. So towards a new integration of Western windows, Eastern doors, and there is a corridor called Nirvana corridor. So we were very happy with the breeze coming to us from the Western windows. But why don't we open the doors which are called as Eastern doors and eventually the Nirvana corridor? So we have here I have tried to present before you the framework which takes us beyond the Western windows approach, and these frameworks, they open some doors which can be called as Eastern doors. Of course, the size is going to be bigger than that of window. So there is a need to integrate the two approaches. If we combine them together, it becomes a door which can be called as Eastern doors. And further, we also need to draw upon the third approach, that is many routes to Nirvana, represented by various spiritual traditions of the world. Why only are we taking the Eastern awakening idea? There are number of awakening ideas which are present in each and every part of the world. So why don't we take benefit of various spiritual traditions of the world? If in some part of the world, whether it belongs to the Western part, even there, if they have some spiritual traditions in their country, why don't we take benefit of that? Why don't we combine the best of the entire world? So that is something which should now become the point of discussion, and we should look at the Nirvana corridor. This approach could be referred to as the corridor of Nirvana, where we have three traditions, that is Western windows, Eastern doors and Nirvana corridors. So in this way, if we implement all three here, again we are ending with the three, that is three traditions, Western windows, Eastern doors and Nirvana corridors. It means again we are following the shloka, following the path which is being shown by a shloka, Ano Bhadra Kritovo Yantu Vishwata. Let the noble idea come to us from each and every dimension. So we are here to witness, we are here to accept whatever best is there, no matter whether it belongs to East or West, North or South. So management thought has been largely rooted in the Western windows tradition, and only during recent years, under the influence of post-modern and new age thinkers, Eastern doors have been opening. In fact, we need to go a step further and incorporate lessons from Nirvana corridors. So we should, in this way, will be going for finding a foundation of joy of living, I hope I have explained to you beyond the Western idea of management what is there. With this, I am ending today's lecture of mine. I hope you must have enjoyed today's lecture of mine. Thank you so much.